Section 1. Introduction and Context. The Appointment of a Revolution. In the pantheon of football management, there exist moments that transcend mere sporting achievement. Moments that redefine not just what is possible on a football pitch, but how the beautiful game itself is conceived, understood, and played. The story of Pep Guardiola's Barcelona between 2008 and 2012 is one such moment. It is a tale of tactical revolution, artistic expression, and ultimately human limitation. It is the story of how one man, armed with an ideology and blessed with extraordinary talent, created football's most dominant force of the modern era, only to see it eventually succumb to the inevitable forces of fatigue and adaptation. May 8, 2008. FC Barcelona, one of football's most storied institutions, stands at a crossroads. The previous season had ended in disappointment. No trophies, a third-place finish in La Liga behind Real Madrid and Villarreal, and a first-round exit from the Copa del Rey at the hands of Valencia. The glory days seemed distant memories. Joan Laporta, the club's president, had just made a decision that would either save Barcelona or accelerate its decline. He had appointed a 37-year-old with no top-flight coaching experience to lead the most expensive squad in Spanish football. His name was José Pep Guardiola Sala. Guardiola was no stranger to Barcelona. As a player, he had been the pivot, the cerebral midfielder who conducted Johan Cruyff's dream team to 4 consecutive La Liga titles and the club's first European Cup in 1992. He understood Barcelona not just as a football club, but as an idea, a philosophy, a way of life. Més que un club, more than a club, wasn't merely a slogan to Guardiola. It was scripture. But understanding Barcelona as a player and commanding it as a coach were vastly different propositions. The Barcelona dressing room in 2008 was a place of enormous egos, fading stars, and rising tensions. It would require both tactical vision and psychological management to transform it. At his unveiling press conference on June 17, 2008, Guardiola spoke with measured confidence. His words would prove prophetic. "I can't promise titles, but I am convinced that the fans will be proud of us. I give you my word that we will put in an effort. I don't know if we'll win, but we'll persist. Put on your seatbelts, because we're going to have fun." What he didn't say publicly, but what would soon become clear through his actions, was that he had already decided to dismantle the existing power structure. Within weeks of his appointment, Guardiola made decisions that would define his entire tenure. Ronaldinho, the Brazilian magician who had almost single-handedly restored Barcelona's glamour in the mid-2000s, would be sold to AC Milan for €21 million. Deco, the Portuguese maestro, and Ronaldinho's closest ally, would follow him to Chelsea for €10 million. Samuel Eto'o was initially told he could leave, though that particular decision would be reversed. The Cameroonian striker would stay and prove instrumental in the treble triumph. These weren't just footballing decisions, they were statements of intent, signaling that reputation meant nothing, and only present commitment mattered. The moves were controversial. Ronaldinho had won the FIFA World Player of the Year award twice and had been central to Barcelona's Champions League triumph in 2006. But Guardiola recognized that the Brazilian's declining fitness and legendary nightlife had become incompatible with the intensity he envisioned. According to contemporary reports, the decision was made swiftly and without sentimentality. Professional concerns outweighed emotional attachments. Pre-season 2008 was unlike anything Barcelona's players had experienced. The training sessions were intense, demanding, relentless. Every drill had a purpose tied to match scenarios. Rondos, the possession circles Barcelona had always practiced, became the foundation of everything. But these weren't casual keep-away exercises. They were pressurized, with specific positional requirements, movement patterns, and decision-making triggers. Guardiola was programming his players like a conductor writing a symphony. each musician needing to know not just their own part, but everyone else's. Guardiola's first speech to the squad, later documented by journalist Guillem Balaguer, set the tone. Speaking in a hotel in St Andrews, Scotland during pre-season, he told his players, "We need and want order and discipline. The team has been through a time when not everybody was as professional as they should have been. It is time for everybody to run and to give their all. I won't tell you off if you misplace a pass or miss a header that costs us a goal, as long as I know you are giving 100%. I could forgive you any mistake, but I won't forgive you if you don't give your heart and soul to Barcelona." The 2008-09 season began with uncertainty. Barcelona won their opening friendly matches convincingly, but these were against lesser opposition. The real test would come in competitive action. When La Liga began on August 31st, with a narrow 1-0 home victory against Numancia, courtesy of a Lionel Messi goal, questions remained. Then came a draw at Racing Santander. After 2 matches, some in the Spanish media were already questioning whether Guardiola had been the right choice. Pedro Rodriguez, the Barcelona forward, 2008 to 2015, said, "I remember they were tough moments, above all for Pep, because he was under a lot of pressure. It's true, there was a lot of excitement at the start of Pep's project. He's a great coach. He had been a great player, as well as the image of Barcelona. I remember the nerves of those first 2 games. What followed transformed skepticism into belief. Barcelona won their next match 6-1 against Sporting Gijón, then demolished Atletico Madrid 6-1 away from home. The goals flowed, 16 in their next 4 matches. The system was clicking, and opponents appeared unable to cope with Barcelona's relentless pressing and passing. Guardiola's methods were working, though the true genius of his tactical innovation wouldn't fully reveal itself until he solved his greatest puzzle: what to do with Lionel Messi. The young Argentine was undoubtedly the team's most talented player, but where did he fit optimally? Guardiola had inherited Messi as a right winger, occasionally playing off the striker. It was effective. Messi had scored 16 goals in all competitions the previous season, but Guardiola sensed it was limiting. The breakthrough would come later in the season, but already in training, Guardiola was experimenting with Messi's positioning, testing what would become known as the false 9 role. The concept of a deep-lying centre-forward wasn't entirely new. Variations had existed in total football's heyday and in other tactical experiments. But in modern football, with its rigid defensive structures and zonal marking systems, deploying your most talented attacker in a position that deliberately defied conventional marking schemes was revolutionary. When opponents didn't follow Messi as he dropped deep, he had time and space to orchestrate attacks from between the lines. When they did follow him, chasms opened in their defense for wingers to exploit. The innovation would prove to be tactical checkmate. The moment the football world truly understood what was happening came on May 2nd, 2009. Barcelona travelled to the Santiago Bernabéu to face their eternal rivals Real Madrid, needing a win to strengthen their grip on the La Liga title. What followed was not just a victory, but a statement of dominance so comprehensive that it bordered on humiliation. Barcelona won 6-2, but the scoreline barely captured the gulf in quality. Real Madrid took the lead through Gonzalo Higuaín in the 14th minute, but Barcelona's response was devastating. Thierry Henry equalized 4 minutes later, then Carles Puyol headed Barcelona in front. Lionel Messi made it 3-1 just before halftime. The second half brought more of the same. Sergio Ramos briefly gave Madrid hope with a goal in the 56th minute, but Henry scored again 2 minutes later. Messi added his second in the 75th minute, and Gerard Piqué completed the scoring in the 83rd minute with his first goal for the club. Real Madrid, with their Galacticos and their proud history, had been made to look ordinary. The statistics told the story of complete domination. Barcelona had controlled the ball, controlled the tempo, and controlled their opponents. It wasn't just that they won, it was the manner of victory. with elegance, with style, with a superiority that seemed almost inevitable once they found their rhythm. For Guardiola, standing in his technical area barely celebrating, it appeared to confirm that his methods could work at the very highest level. As Barcelona marched toward the end of the 2008 to 2009 season, momentum became an unstoppable force. They secured La Liga with 87 points, finishing 9 points ahead of Real Madrid, having scored 105 goals in 38 matches, nearly 3 per game. They had captured the Copa del Rey on May 13th, defeating Athletic Bilbao 4-1 in the final at the Mestalla in Valencia. But one trophy remained, the one that defined greatness, the one that separated good teams from immortal ones, the UEFA Champions League. Barcelona's path to the final had been imperious. They eliminated Lyon 6-3 on aggregate in the round of 16, with a particularly dominant 5-2 victory in the second leg at Camp Nou. The quarter-final against Bayern Munich saw them progress 5-1 on aggregate after a stunning 4-0 home victory. But the semi-final against Chelsea would provide the season's most dramatic moment. The first leg at Camp Nou had finished goalless, a frustrating evening for Barcelona. In the second leg at Stamford Bridge, Chelsea took the lead through Michael Essien and appeared destined for the final. Barcelona struggled to create clear chances against Chelsea's organised defence. Then, in the third minute of stoppage time, with Chelsea players appealing for penalties that weren't given, Andrés Iniesta received the ball 25 yards from goal and struck it with his right foot. The ball flew into the top corner. The away goal sent Barcelona through to the final. Iniesta's celebration, running toward the corner flag, removing his shirt, falling to his knees in tears, captured the emotion of a moment that kept Barcelona's treble hopes alive. Chelsea were devastated, feeling aggrieved by several refereeing decisions. But Barcelona cared little for sympathy. They had reached the Champions League final against Manchester United in Rome. The Stadio Olimpico buzzed with anticipation on May 27th, 2009. Could Manchester United's power and pace overcome Barcelona's possession and precision? For 90 minutes, the world received its answer. Barcelona won 2-0, but the scoreline was insufficient to capture their dominance. They maintained 59% possession and completed 670 passes to United's 309. Samuel Eto'o opened the scoring in the 10th minute with a clinical finish, giving Barcelona an early advantage. Manchester United tried to respond, but Barcelona's control was absolute. Then, in the 70th minute, came the moment that would be replayed forever. Xavi's precisely delivered cross from the right wing, and Messi's header past Edwin van der Sar. At just 5 feet 7 inches tall, Messi had outjumped Rio Ferdinand to seal victory. It was symbolic. Even in the air, where Barcelona should have been vulnerable, they found a way through superior positioning and timing. The treble was complete. In his first season as a top-flight manager, Pep Guardiola had achieved what only 2 other teams in history had managed in the modern era, winning the domestic league, domestic cup, and European Cup in the same season. Barcelona had accumulated trophies and broken records. They had played football that seemed to transcend the sport's usual limitations, and at the centre of it all was a 38-year-old coach who looked perpetually worried, who obsessed over every detail, and who had just announced to the football world that a new era had begun. But triumph contains within it the seeds of future challenges. Guardiola had set a standard that would be extraordinarily difficult to maintain. His Barcelona had climbed to a summit so high that the only direction remaining was down, or the even more challenging task of staying at the peak. The question was no longer whether they could win, it was whether they could keep winning, at what cost, and for how long. The rise had been meteoric, breathtaking, nearly perfect. The eventual decline, when it came, would be inevitable and deeply human. But for now, in the summer of 2009, with the treble secured and the football world in awe, Barcelona stood alone at the peak, masters of everything they surveyed. Section 2. The revolutionary tactical system, reimagining football. To understand what made Guardiola's Barcelona so revolutionary, one must first understand what they transformed. Modern football in 2008 had evolved into a game of transitions, compact defensive blocks, rapid counter-attacks, and physical duels dominated the tactical landscape. The template for success, refined by José Mourinho's Chelsea and Rafa Benitez's Liverpool, emphasized defensive organization above all else. Teams would sit deep, absorb pressure, and strike quickly when possession was won. It was effective, winning trophies across Europe, but it represented a defensive evolution of the game. Guardiola's Barcelona would chart a different course entirely. The foundation of everything was possession, not possession for its own sake, but possession as a defensive tool. Guardiola's philosophy, rooted in the teachings of his mentor Johan Cruyff, held that controlling the ball was the most effective form of defending. The logic was simple, yet profound. If Barcelona maintained possession, opponents couldn't score. Every second the ball spent at a Barcelona player's feet was a second the opposition spent chasing, running, exhausting themselves physically and mentally. Possession wasn't just an attacking strategy, it was comprehensive control of the match. But possession alone was meaningless without structure. This is where Guardiola's tactical genius emerged. He conceived of the pitch not as a flat surface, but as a three-dimensional space divided into zones, each with specific responsibilities and movement patterns. The nominal shape was a 4-3-3 formation, but that description barely scratches the surface. In possession, it morphed fluidly, sometimes appearing as a 3-4-3, with one centre-back stepping into midfield, or a 2-3-5 with both fullbacks pushed incredibly high. The system was built on principles that Guardiola had learned from Cruyff, but refined to near-scientific precision. The ball must always move faster than any player can run. There must always be passing options, ideally at least 3 for every ball carrier. The team must maintain compactness, with a maximum of 40 yards between the deepest defender and the highest attacker. Width must be provided to stretch opponents horizontally, creating vertical passing lanes through the centre. The rhythm of passing must vary, combining quick one-touch exchanges with patient circulation to manipulate defensive shapes. Central to the system was creating numerical superiority in key areas. In the build-up phase, Barcelona would engineer a 3 versus 2 situation against the opposition's forwards, with the centre-backs splitting wide and Sergio Busquets dropping between them. This gave them an automatic advantage, ensuring they could always play through pressure. In midfield, Xavi and Iniesta would position themselves between the lines, in the space between the opponent's midfield and defense, where they became extremely difficult to mark. If an opponent's midfielder stepped up to press, space opened behind him. If he stayed back, Barcelona had time on the ball. Sergio Busquets operated as the lone pivot, the single defensive midfielder shielding the back four. In most tactical systems, this would be dangerously exposed. One defensive midfielder against 2 or 3 opposition attackers invited trouble. But in Guardiola's Barcelona, Busquets was protected through team positioning and the high defensive line. His own technical ability and spatial intelligence allowed him to receive the ball under pressure and play out of situations that would trap less gifted players. His positioning was extraordinary, often intercepting passes before attacks could develop. The statistics from Busquets' prime years under Guardiola demonstrate his importance. He regularly completed over 90% of his passes, while making more interceptions per game than almost any other midfielder in Europe's top leagues. Vicente del Bosque, Spain's national team coach, who also worked with Busquets, famously observed, "You watch the game, you don't see Busquets. You watch Busquets, you see the whole game." When Barcelona lost possession, the response was immediate and coordinated. Guardiola implemented what became known as the 6-second rule. Players had 6 seconds to recover the ball, before the team would reorganize into a defensive shape. This wasn't chaotic ball chasing. The pressing was systematic and trap-oriented. The forward nearest the ball would press immediately, but at an angle that forced the opponent toward the touchline or toward another Barcelona player. Meanwhile, teammates would shift to close passing lanes, creating a defensive trap in specific zones of the pitch. The effectiveness was measurable. In Guardiola's first season, Barcelona recovered possession in the attacking third more frequently than any other team in Europe's major leagues. They would win the ball 30 or 40 yards from the opponent's goal, often with the opposing team completely disorganized, and immediately create dangerous chances. This transformed defending into attacking, making every opposition mistake potentially catastrophic. Perhaps Guardiola's most influential innovation was the false nine, a tactical concept that would reshape modern football. The traditional centre-forward had been one of football's most consistent positional roles for over a century, a player who stayed high, occupied centre-backs, and converted chances. Guardiola dispensed with this entirely. In his system, Messi would start as the nominal striker, but immediately drop into midfield as Barcelona gained possession. This created a devastating tactical dilemma for opponents. If the centre-backs stayed in their defensive line, Messi had space and time to receive the ball in the most dangerous area on the pitch, the space between midfield and defence. If one centre-back followed Messi deep, he abandoned his defensive line, leaving space for Pedro or David Villa to exploit with runs in behind. There was no good solution. Both choices created problems that Barcelona's technical quality could exploit. The false nine wasn't just about Messi's positioning. It required the entire team to adapt. With Messi dropping deep, the wingers became inverted forwards, making diagonal runs from wide to central positions. The full-backs provided width, stretching opposition defences horizontally. The central midfielders would make late runs into the box, attacking spaces Messi's movement had created. It was tactical chess at the highest level, sacrificing the traditional striker position to gain advantages across multiple areas of the pitch. Executing this complex system required not just tactical understanding, but technical perfection. Guardiola's training methods became crucial. Every session emphasized fundamentals: first touch, passing accuracy, receiving the ball on the half-turn. Players spent extensive time in rondo circles, working on one-touch passing under high pressure. The intensity was deliberately elevated, with consequences for mistakes. Players who failed to win the ball within a set time in rondo exercises faced additional conditioning work. It created an environment where technical excellence was non-negotiable. Thierry Henry, the Barcelona forward, 2007 to 2010, said, "You know you're doing something special when people want to see how you play and not how you win. I think we moved people. I have the perception that during those years, the people who watched us had a great time." The system's aesthetic beauty was inseparable from its effectiveness. Barcelona didn't just win. They won in a manner that appeared effortless, that seemed to elevate football to an art form. The constant movement, the one-touch passing combinations, the way they seemed to dance around opponents rather than battle through them. It captivated audiences worldwide. The results were extraordinary. In the 2008 to 2009 season, Barcelona scored 105 goals in La Liga alone, nearly 3 per game. The following season, they scored 106. They maintained possession percentages regularly exceeding 65%, sometimes reaching 70% or higher against top opposition. They won matches 5-0, 6-0, even 8-0, scorelines that seemed implausible against professional opposition. And crucially, they achieved this while also maintaining defensive solidity, often conceding fewer than 25 goals per season in La Liga. Opposition managers struggled to find solutions. Arsène Wenger's Arsenal tried to match Barcelona's possession game, but lacked the technical quality. José Mourinho's Inter Milan succeeded by abandoning possession entirely and defending with extraordinary discipline. Other teams attempted various approaches: high pressing to disrupt build-up play, ultra-defensive setups to deny space, physical intimidation to unsettle Barcelona's technical players. Some approaches worked occasionally, but none provided a consistent method to stop Barcelona at their peak. Comparative statistics from this period illustrate Barcelona's dominance. Between 2008 and 2011, they won approximately 75% of their matches across all competitions, a win rate that few teams in history have sustained over multiple seasons. Their goal difference during this period exceeded plus 250 across all competitions. In La Liga alone, they averaged over 95 points per season, a figure that would win the title in virtually any season in any league. The influence spread globally. Coaches at every level began implementing elements of Barcelona's approach. Youth academies restructured programs to emphasize possession and technical development. Professional teams across Europe adopted high pressing and positional play principles. The terminology of Barcelona's system, false nine, positional play, superiority and build-up, became standard language in tactical discussions. Guardiola's Barcelona hadn't just won trophies. They had fundamentally shifted how football was conceived and taught. Yet the system's brilliance contained inherent limitations. It required players of exceptional technical ability. Not every team possessed a Xavi, Iniesta, and Messi. It demanded intense concentration for 90 minutes. Mental fatigue became a significant factor over long seasons. It needed time on the training ground to perfect. The automatic movements and rotations didn't happen naturally, and perhaps most significantly, it required opponents to engage. Teams willing to concede possession entirely and defend with 11 men posed problems that the system struggled to solve consistently. The revolutionary tactical system Guardiola created at Barcelona was magnificent, a perfect marriage of philosophy and pragmatism, beauty and effectiveness. It proved that football could be both art and conquest, that dominance could be achieved through possession rather than physical imposition. But like all revolutionary systems, it was a product of specific circumstances, unique players, perfect timing, and opponents still learning how to respond. The revolution Guardiola sparked was brilliant, but, as would become clear, unsustainable at the absolute highest level indefinitely. Perfection, it seems, can only exist in moments, not eternities. Section 3. The 2008 to 2009 Treble season. The perfect storm. July 2008. The Costa Brava baked under the Mediterranean sun as Barcelona's players assembled for pre-season training under their new coach. The atmosphere mixed curiosity with uncertainty. Many of these players were world-class talents, veterans of multiple trophy campaigns. Now, a former teammate with just 1 year of coaching experience in Spain's third tier was telling them they needed to transform how they approached the game. It was a delicate situation, one that would require both tactical vision and psychological astuteness. Guardiola's early actions as manager were decisive. Ronaldinho, the Brazilian whose skill had almost single-handedly restored Barcelona's glamour in the mid-2000s, was informed his services were no longer required. Despite being just 28 years old and having won FIFA World Player of the Year twice, his declining fitness levels and reputation for prioritizing nightlife over professionalism made him incompatible with Guardiola's vision. AC Milan paid €21 million to acquire him in July 2008. Deco, the Portuguese midfielder who had been instrumental in Barcelona's 2006 Champions League triumph, was similarly moved on, joining Chelsea for €10 million. These were not just squad adjustments. They were statements that past achievements guaranteed nothing. The message was clear. Only present commitment and future potential mattered. Samuel Eto'o, Barcelona's leading scorer, was initially told he could leave as well. However, that decision was reversed after Guardiola reassessed the squad's needs, and Eto'o would vindicate that reversal by becoming crucial to the treble triumph. Pre-season results were mixed. Barcelona won all 6 of their summer friendlies, including matches against Scottish sides Hibernian and Dundee United, Italian club Fiorentina, and South American teams. They scored prolifically, 5 goals or more in 4 of these matches. But friendlies rarely provide reliable indicators of competitive form, and skeptics questioned whether Guardiola's methods would translate against serious opposition. August 31st, 2008. Barcelona's La Liga campaign opened at Camp Nou against newly promoted Numancia. On paper, it appeared straightforward. In reality, it proved troubling. The match finished 1-0 to Barcelona, with Lionel Messi providing the winning goal. The performance was unconvincing, with Barcelona struggling to break down Numancia's organized defense. The second match brought a 1-1 draw at Racing Santander. After 2 games, Barcelona had just 4 points, and Spanish media were already questioning Guardiola's appointment. Pedro Rodriguez said, "I remember they were tough moments, above all for Pep, because he was under a lot of pressure. I even remember he told me that he was going to try and play me in case he didn't continue. And look at what followed. Everything he won and the era we had. What followed was a transformation." Barcelona defeated Sporting Gijón 6-1 on September 13th, then crushed Atletico Madrid 6-1 away on September 21st. The system was clicking, the goals flowing. Racing Santander fell 4-1, Sevilla lost 1-0, then Valencia 3-0. By the end of October, Barcelona had played 10 league matches, winning 9 and drawing 1. They sat top of La Liga with 28 points, having scored 33 goals while conceding just 6. These were extraordinary numbers, suggesting something special was developing. The tactical evolution was visible match by match. Initially, Messi operated from the right wing, as he had under previous coach Frank Rijkaard. But gradually, Guardiola began deploying him more centrally, experimenting with dropping him deeper to receive the ball between the lines. The false 9 wasn't fully formed yet. That would crystallize later, but the seeds were being planted. November 1st, 2008, brought an early season test at the Santiago Bernabéu. Real Madrid versus Barcelona is always significant, but this felt different, a chance for Guardiola to prove his methods worked against elite opposition. Barcelona won 3-0, with goals from Eto'o, Henry, and Messi. The performance demonstrated control, confidence, and tactical superiority. But this was merely a preview of what would come at the Bernabéu 6 months later. The winter period tested Barcelona's consistency. They dropped points occasionally. Draws against Valencia, Espanyol, and Villarreal prevented them from running away with the title. In the Copa del Rey, they progressed through the rounds methodically, defeating lower league opponents without fuss. In the Champions League group stage, they topped their group ahead of Sporting CP, Basel, and Shakhtar Donetsk, winning 5 of 6 matches. Everything pointed toward a strong finish to the season, but the defining moments were yet to come. Spring 2009 would determine Guardiola's first season. Barcelona entered the critical period competing on 3 fronts: La Liga, Copa del Rey, and Champions League. Success in all 3 was possible, but historically improbable. Only 2 teams in European football history had achieved the treble of Domestic League, Domestic Cup, and European Cup in the same season: Celtic in 1967 and Ajax in 1972. Barcelona aimed to become the first Spanish side to accomplish this feat. May 2nd, 2009. The date would become legendary in Barcelona folklore. Barcelona travelled to the Santiago Bernabéu, needing a victory to maintain their position atop La Liga. Real Madrid, desperate to prevent another Barcelona triumph in their stadium, started aggressively. Gonzalo Higuaín gave them a 14th-minute lead. For a moment, it appeared Barcelona might struggle. Then Barcelona responded with a display of football that bordered on the sublime. Thierry Henry equalised in the 18th minute. Carles Puyol headed Barcelona in front in the 20th minute. Lionel Messi made it 3-1 in the 36th minute. At half-time, Barcelona led 3-1 at the Bernabéu, and Real Madrid appeared broken. The The second half brought more of the same. Sergio Ramos briefly gave Madrid hope with a goal in the 56th minute, making it 3-2. But 2 minutes later, Henry scored his second to restore the two-goal cushion. Messi added his second in the 75th minute, and Gerard Piqué, making his first season back at Barcelona after years at Manchester United, completed the scoring in the 83rd minute. The 6-2 victory wasn't just significant for the scoreline. It was the manner of victory. Barcelona had played with freedom, creativity, and a technical superiority that made Madrid's response appear futile. Thousands poured onto Barcelona's streets that night to celebrate. The victory effectively secured La Liga, as Barcelona's lead became insurmountable, with just weeks remaining. 4 days later came another defining moment. Barcelona faced Chelsea in the Champions League semi-final second leg at Stamford Bridge. The first leg at Camp Nou had finished goalless, a frustrating result for Barcelona. At Chelsea, the home side took the lead through Michael Essien's spectacular volley in the 9th minute. Chelsea then dominated for long periods, creating numerous chances. Didier Drogba hit the post. Multiple appeals for penalties were waved away by Norwegian referee Tom Henning Øvrebø, leading to controversy that would dominate post-match discussion. As the match entered injury time, Barcelona had created little. They were heading for elimination. Then, in the 93rd minute, Andrés Iniesta received the ball 25 yards from goal. With one touch to control, he struck the ball with his right foot. It flew into the top corner. Iniesta sprinted toward the corner flag, removed his shirt, and fell to his knees. Barcelona were through to the Champions League final on away goals. The aftermath was chaotic. Chelsea players and staff were incensed by several refereeing decisions during the match. Drogba's anguished cry, "It's a disgrace," captured their despair and was broadcast live on television. But Barcelona cared little for sympathy or controversy. They had reached the Champions League final and remained on course for an unprecedented treble. May 13th, 2009. The Copa del Rey final at the Mestalla in Valencia saw Barcelona face Athletic Bilbao. Barcelona won 4-1, with goals from Touré, Messi, Bojan and Xavi. Athletic briefly took the lead through Gaizka Toquero, but Barcelona's response was swift and comprehensive. 2 trophies were now secured, La Liga and Copa del Rey. Only the Champions League final remained. The Stadio Olimpico in Rome on May 27, 2009, hosted the Champions League final between Barcelona and Manchester United. United were the defending champions, having defeated Chelsea in the 2008 final. They possessed Cristiano Ronaldo at the absolute peak of his powers. The Portuguese forward had scored 42 goals that season. Sir Alex Ferguson brought decades of experience and a team that had won 3 consecutive Premier League titles. Barcelona, despite their domestic dominance, were the challengers seeking to prove themselves at Europe's highest level. The opening 10 minutes saw Manchester United press high, attempting to disrupt Barcelona's build-up play before it could develop. United created early chances and appeared to have implemented a viable game plan. But in the 10th minute, Barcelona struck. Eto'o latched onto Iniesta's perfectly weighted through ball and finished clinically past Edwin van der Sar. 1-0 to Barcelona, and suddenly United's approach required reconsideration. What followed was a masterclass in controlled domination. Barcelona maintained possession, dictated tempo, and systematically dismantled United's attempts at organisation. Wayne Rooney equalised for United in the 34th minute with a header, but it proved merely a temporary interruption. Barcelona continued controlling the match through superior technical execution and tactical positioning. The 70th minute brought the goal that would seal victory. Xavi, receiving the ball on the right wing, delivered a cross toward the penalty area. Lionel Messi, just 5 feet 7 inches tall, rose above Rio Ferdinand and headed the ball past Van der Sar. The symbolism was perfect. Even in aerial duels, where Barcelona should have been vulnerable, their superior positioning and timing prevailed. The final whistle confirmed a 2-0 victory. The treble was complete. Barcelona had won La Liga with 87 points, 9 ahead of Real Madrid. They had won the Copa del Rey, defeating Athletic Bilbao 4-1. And they had won the Champions League, defeating the holders, Manchester United. In total, Barcelona had played 62 matches across all competitions, winning 47, drawing 11, and losing just 4. They had scored 170 goals, while conceding 58. The statistics confirmed what observers worldwide had witnessed. Barcelona had achieved something extraordinary. Sir Alex Ferguson, Manchester United manager, said, "In my time as manager, it's the best team we've faced. Everyone acknowledges that." In the dressing room after the celebrations, surrounded by the 3 trophies that defined a historic season, Guardiola could reflect on what had been achieved. In 9 months, he had transformed a talented but underperforming squad into European champions. He had implemented a tactical system that revolutionized modern football. He had managed enormous egos while maintaining team harmony. And he had done it while playing football that honored Barcelona's traditions of attractive, possession-based play. But even in triumph, challenges loomed. The intensity required to maintain these standards was immense. The physical demands of competing on multiple fronts for an entire season had pushed players to their limits, and opponents across Europe were already studying Barcelona's methods, searching for weaknesses to exploit. The treble season had been perfect, but perfection is notoriously difficult to repeat. As Barcelona's players dispersed for a brief summer break, the question shifted from "can they win" to "can they keep winning?" The answer would define the next 3 years. Section 4, the core trinity, Messi, Xavi, and Iniesta. Every great team in football history has been defined by its key players, the individuals whose talent and character elevated the collective beyond the sum of its parts. Manchester United had Best, Law, and Charlton. AC Milan had Gullit, Van Basten, and Rijkaard. Real Madrid had Di Stefano, Puskas, and Gento. But perhaps no trio in football history has been as perfectly complementary, as symbiotically connected, as Lionel Messi, Xavi Hernandez, and Andrés Iniesta. These 3 players, products of Barcelona's famed La Masia Academy, formed the beating heart of Guardiola's revolution. Xavi Hernandez Creus was born in Terrassa, near Barcelona, in January 1980. From his earliest days in football, he demonstrated qualities that set him apart from typical players. Where others relied on pace or power, Xavi possessed vision, intelligence, and an almost supernatural ability to understand space and time on a football pitch. He joined La Masia at age 11, making his way through Barcelona's youth system before debuting for the first team in 1998 at age 18. By the time Guardiola arrived in 2008, Xavi was 28 years old and had made over 400 appearances for Barcelona, winning the Champions League in 2006. But Guardiola elevated him further, making him the absolute center of the team's tactical system. In Guardiola's Barcelona, everything flowed through Xavi. He set the tempo, controlled the rhythm, and found solutions when none seemed available. The statistics were remarkable. Xavi regularly completed over 100 passes per match, while maintaining accuracy rates above 90%. Xavi operated in the half spaces, the areas between the opponent's midfield and defense where he was difficult to mark. His positioning created constant dilemmas for opposing managers. If you pressed Xavi, you left space elsewhere. If you gave him time, he would dissect defensive structures with precise passes. His trademark was the through ball that split defensive lines, turning Barcelona's possession into penetration. Xavi himself explained his approach in interviews documented over the years. His philosophy centered on finding solutions in limited space and time, scanning the field constantly to know where teammates and opponents were positioned before receiving the ball. The pass, he emphasized, was merely the execution of a decision already made through observation and analysis. Andrés Iniesta Luján was born in Fuentealbilla, a small village in Spain's Castilla-La Mancha region, in May 1984. He arrived at La Masia at age 12, initially struggling with homesickness and feeling overwhelmed by Barcelona's intensity. He nearly quit in his first year, but Barcelona's coaches recognized something special in this quiet boy who moved with the ball as if it were attached to his foot by an invisible string. Iniesta's style was completely different from Xavi's methodical approach. Where Xavi was structured and rhythmic, Iniesta was improvisational and intuitive. He operated in even tighter spaces, in areas where most players would panic. His signature move, La Croqueta, involved shifting the ball quickly from one foot to the other while changing direction, evading tackles that seemed certain to succeed. He became football's escape artist, the player who could wriggle free from any pressure situation. But Iniesta was more than just a dribbler. His passing, particularly in the final third, had a quality that was difficult to quantify, an ability to find teammates in dangerous positions with passes that defenders never anticipated. He saw angles that didn't appear to exist, delivering balls through impossible windows of space. And unlike many technical players, Iniesta was also a big-game performer, scoring crucial goals at crucial moments despite not being primarily a goal-scorer. Iniesta's defining moment in this era came on May 6, 2009, at Stamford Bridge. Barcelona were on the verge of elimination from the Champions League, trailing Chelsea in the semi-final. As the match entered the 93rd minute, Iniesta received the ball 25 yards from goal. Without hesitation, he struck it with his right foot, and the ball flew into the top corner. The away goal sent Barcelona to the final and kept the treble dream alive. It remains one of the most important goals in Barcelona's history. Lionel Andrés Messi Cucitini arrived at Barcelona from Rosario, Argentina, at age 13 in 2000. His story, overcoming growth hormone deficiency with treatment funded by Barcelona, rising through La Masia, and making his first team debut at 17, has been documented extensively. By the time Guardiola arrived in 2008, Messi was 21 years old and already recognized as one of the world's most talented players, having scored 38 goals across all competitions in the 2007 to 2008 season. But questions remained about Messi's optimal position and role. Frank Rijkaard, the previous manager, had used Messi primarily as a right winger, occasionally playing off the striker. It was effective, but potentially limiting. Guardiola saw something different, a player with the technical ability to play anywhere, the football intelligence to find space in impossible places, and the finishing to punish any defensive lapse. Guardiola's innovation was moving Messi centrally as a false nine. Instead of operating on the right wing, Messi would start centrally but drop deep into midfield, receiving the ball in positions where he had time and space to run at disorganized defenses. The statistical impact was immediate and dramatic. In the treble season of 2008 to 2009, playing as a false nine, Messi scored 38 goals and provided 18 assists across all competitions. His influence on matches became total, not just scoring, but creating, dictating, controlling. What made Barcelona truly unstoppable was how these three players functioned together. Their chemistry transcended normal teamwork. When all three were on the pitch, Barcelona operated with remarkable synchronicity, making collective decisions that seemed to anticipate each other's movements instinctively. The one-touch passing triangles, the constant positional rotations, the automatic understanding of positioning. It represented football at its purest form. Statistical analysis of Barcelona's matches under Guardiola reveals the significance of this trio. In matches where all three started together, Barcelona's win rate exceeded 80%. Their pass completion rates to each other were consistently above 90%, remarkably high, given that these were often risky, penetrative passes in dangerous areas. Xavi would complete over 25 passes per game to Iniesta or Messi. Iniesta would combine with Messi dozens of times per match. The connections between them formed the central nervous system of Barcelona's play. Certain goals encapsulate their partnership perfectly. In numerous matches, sequences would unfold where Xavi received the ball in midfield, immediately spotting Iniesta's run. The pass would thread between defenders with perfect weight. Iniesta would take one touch, then find Messi making a diagonal run. Messi would finish clinically. 3 players, minimal touches, maximum efficiency. It wasn't just individual brilliance, it was collective intelligence, each player amplifying the other's strengths. Off the pitch, their personalities differed significantly. Xavi was vocal, the player who organized the team and demanded high standards. Iniesta was quiet, almost shy, preferring to let his football communicate. Messi was somewhere between, not particularly vocal, but commanding respect through consistent excellence. These differences complemented each other. Xavi's leadership provided structure. Iniesta's humility kept egos in check. Messi's genius gave everyone a standard to aspire toward. Lionel Messi said, "Pep immediately transmitted an enormous amount of pride in our work, ambition, and hunger. He won our confidence from the first day, because we could see that things were being done correctly. And then when results started to flow, the confidence grew with them." The statistics from the Guardiola era tell the story of their combined dominance. Xavi made 599 total appearances for Barcelona throughout his career, winning 25 major trophies. Iniesta made 674 appearances, winning 32 major trophies. Messi's numbers under Guardiola alone are extraordinary. 357 appearances, 211 goals, 74 assists. Together, they accumulated silverware at a rate unprecedented in modern football. But beyond individual accolades was what they achieved collectively, a style of play that influenced football globally. Their partnership extended beyond Barcelona. Xavi and Iniesta were the core of Spain's national team that won Euro 2008, the 2010 World Cup, and Euro 2012, an unprecedented run of international success, built on principles similar to those Guardiola refined at Barcelona. They brought the club's philosophy to the international stage and proved it could succeed anywhere, against anyone. Messi, playing for Argentina, never achieved the same international success, though he reached the 2014 World Cup final and won the Copa America in 2021, years after Guardiola's Barcelona era. Footage from the end of matches during this period often captured Messi, Xavi, and Iniesta walking off the pitch together, arms around each other's shoulders, talking quietly. These images captured the bond between them, mutual respect and affection that underpinned their on-field chemistry. They weren't just teammates executing a system. They were artists who had found perfect collaborators, each making the others better through their presence and understanding. But even the greatest trios eventually face challenges that individual brilliance cannot overcome. Opponents adapt, bodies age, and the mental demands of sustained excellence exact their toll. The question facing Barcelona after their early triumphs wasn't whether they could continue winning. It was whether they could maintain the intensity, the focus, and the physical freshness required to stay at the summit. The 3 players who formed Barcelona's heart would soon face tests that would reveal both their extraordinary resilience and their human limitations. Their peak would prove breathtaking, but, like all peaks, it would be temporary. Section 5, the 2009-10 season, Defending Glory. Summer 2009. Barcelona returned from their treble triumph as the undisputed best team in world football. The question was simple yet profound. Could they do it again? History suggested otherwise. Only AC Milan in 1989-90 had successfully defended the European Cup in consecutive years during the Champions League era. The physical and mental demands of competing on multiple fronts while being every opponent's biggest match had broken countless champions before. Guardiola approached the new season with visible concern. In pre-season press conferences, he spoke about the difficulty of maintaining hunger after achieving so much. He warned about complacency and about opponents who would study Barcelona obsessively. His concerns would prove prescient. Success had made Barcelona predictable, and in football, predictability creates vulnerability. The squad that assembled for pre-season training was largely unchanged from the treble winners. Guardiola made one significant addition. Zlatan Ibrahimovic arrived from Inter Milan for approximately €69.5 million, including player exchanges, making it one of Barcelona's most expensive signings. The Swedish striker was intended to provide a different tactical option as a traditional number 9. Otherwise, Guardiola trusted the players who had delivered the treble. The season began with the Spanish Super Cup against Athletic Bilbao, won 5-1 on aggregate. Then came the UEFA Super Cup against Shakhtar Donetsk on August 28th in Monaco. Barcelona won 1-0 after extra time, with Pedro scoring the decisive goal in the 115th minute. These were expected victories, trophies collected efficiently, if not spectacularly. The real tests would come in La Liga and the Champions League. Barcelona's La Liga campaign started strongly. They won their opening match against Sporting Gijón 3-0, then defeated Getafe 2-0, Racing Santander 4-1, and Atletico Madrid 5-2. By the end of October, Barcelona had played 9 league matches, winning 8 and drawing 1. They sat atop La Liga, and the treble defense appeared on track. But beneath the surface, adaptations were occurring. Opponents increasingly deployed ultra-defensive setups, packing 9 or 10 players behind the ball and conceding possession willingly. They recognized Barcelona would dominate possession. That was inevitable. But by remaining compact, disciplined and patient, they could limit penetration and hope to catch Barcelona on counterattacks. It was defensively oriented football, but it proved increasingly effective. The Ibrahimovic signing created unexpected complications. Integrating him into Barcelona's system proved problematic. His style, powerful, direct, individualistic, didn't align naturally with the collective approach Guardiola demanded. When Ibrahimovic dropped deep like Messi, Barcelona had 2 players occupying similar space. When he stayed high as a traditional striker, the system's fluidity was disrupted. He scored 21 goals in 45 appearances during his single season at Barcelona. Respectable numbers, but the tactical fit was never ideal. In the Champions League, Barcelona topped their group comfortably ahead of Inter Milan, Dynamo Kiev, and Rubin Kazan. They won 5 matches and drew 1, scoring 12 goals while conceding just 3. Results were decisive, though performances sometimes lacked the sparkle of the previous season. December 29th, 2009, brought a significant test. Barcelona travelled to the Santiago Bernabéu for El Clásico, still unbeaten in La Liga. Real Madrid, now coached by Manuel Pellegrini and desperate to avenge previous humiliations, won 1-0. Gonzalo Higuaín scored the only goal. Barcelona had been outplayed in periods, and it marked their first league defeat in over a year. Questions emerged about whether Guardiola's team retained the hunger that had driven them to the treble. The Bernabeu defeat sparked a response. Guardiola intensified training and demanded greater focus. Barcelona responded by winning 8 consecutive La Liga matches between January and March. On April 10th, they defeated Real Madrid 2-0 at Camp Nou with goals from Messi too, effectively ending Madrid's title challenge. The Liga Championship was secured on May 16th with a 4-0 victory over Valladolid at Camp Nou. Barcelona finished with 99 points, a record at the time, 3 points ahead of Real Madrid. The Champions League knockout stages began promisingly. Barcelona faced VfB Stuttgart in the round of 16, winning 5-1 on aggregate, 1-1 away, 1-0 at home, 4-0 at home. Messi scored hat-tricks in both legs. The quarter-finals brought Arsenal. The first leg at Emirates Stadium finished 2-2 after Barcelona surrendered a 2-goal lead. But the second leg at Camp Nou saw Barcelona win 4-1, with Messi scoring all 4 goals in a remarkable individual performance. The semi-final draw pitted Barcelona against Inter Milan, managed by José Mourinho. The Portuguese coach had built his reputation by stopping possession-based teams with defensive organisation at Porto and Chelsea. At Inter since 2008, he had transformed them into European contenders. More significantly, he had a specific tactical plan designed to neutralise everything that made Barcelona dangerous. Mourinho's Inter would defend in a 4-5-1 formation that could compress into even more defensive shapes. The key was compactness. Inter's defensive line stayed deep and narrow, eliminating spaces Barcelona needed to exploit. When Barcelona had possession in non-dangerous areas, Inter wouldn't press. They would hold their shape, wait, and force Barcelona to find solutions against a massed defence. The first leg at Camp Nou on April 20th, 2010, finished 3-1 to Inter Milan. Barcelona dominated possession with 63% and completed over 600 passes, but Inter's defensive organisation was exceptional. Wesley Sneijder scored for Inter in the 30th minute. Maicon added a second in the 48th minute. Pedro pulled one back for Barcelona in the 88th minute, making it 2-1, but Diego Milito scored Inter's third in injury time. Barcelona now faced a 3-1 deficit heading to San Siro. The second leg at San Siro on April 28th would become one of the most controversial matches in Champions League history. Barcelona started urgently, needing goals. Gerard Piqué headed them level on aggregate in the 19th minute. Then, in the 28th minute, Inter's Thiago Motta was sent off for a challenge on Sergio Busquets, a decision that appeared harsh on replays. Inter were down to 10 men for over an hour. What followed was an epic defensive performance from Inter. They defended with extraordinary discipline, every player tracking back, every space covered. Barcelona created numerous chances, but couldn't score the decisive goal. Boyan hit the post. Piqué had headers saved. Then, in the 61st minute, Inter counter-attacked, and Diego Milito scored to make it 3-2 on aggregate. Barcelona now needed 2 goals. In the 84th minute, Piqué scored again, making it 3-3 on aggregate, but Barcelona needed one more. It never came. Inter's defence held, and when the final whistle blew, they had eliminated Barcelona. The treble defence was over. José Mourinho, April 28, 2010, said, "Barcelona have fantastic players, but we have a fantastic organisation. They can have the ball because we know how to defend. Football is not just about possession, it's about being effective. Tonight, we were effective." Barcelona finished the season with 2 trophies, La Liga with 99 points and the Spanish Super Cup. The Copa del Rey final against Sevilla ended in a 2-1 defeat. By Barcelona's impossibly high standards, 2009-10 was disappointing. They had dominated Spanish football, but failed to conquer Europe, and with José Mourinho announced as Real Madrid's new coach for 2010-11, the challenge was intensifying. Section 6, the 2010-11 season, peak perfection. After the Inter Milan defeat, Barcelona approached 2010-11 with renewed determination. They had learned that possession alone wasn't sufficient, that opponents had found methods to frustrate their system. Guardiola spent the summer analysing what had failed and how to evolve. The solution wouldn't be revolutionary. Barcelona's core principles remained unchanged, but evolutionary, small adjustments to make them even more difficult to stop. The most significant change was attacking tempo, where the previous season had sometimes seen Barcelona become passive against mass defences, content to circulate possession without genuine penetration. Now Guardiola demanded more vertical play, more risk-taking, more directness when appropriate. The passing remained Barcelona's foundation, but the tempo would vary more dramatically, slow build-ups followed by sudden accelerations. The season began with the Spanish Super Cup against Sevilla, who had defeated Barcelona in the previous season's Copa del Rey final. Barcelona won 5-3 on aggregate, with Messi scoring twice. It served as a statement of intent. Barcelona had returned sharper and more focused. But the real story of the early season was the brewing conflict with Real Madrid. José Mourinho had arrived at the Bernabeu with a clear mandate: stop Barcelona's dominance by any means necessary. From his first press conference, Mourinho positioned himself as Barcelona's antagonist, making comments about refereeing decisions, about the club's political connections, about behaviour on the pitch. It was deliberate provocation, designed to create a narrative where Real Madrid were underdogs fighting against a corrupt system. The first El Clásico came on November 29, 2010, at Camp Nou. Barcelona won 5-0 in a match that was physical and controversial. Sergio Ramos was sent off for a deliberate foul on Messi. Real Madrid, unable to match Barcelona technically, resorted to physical tactics that proved ineffective. The victory was comprehensive. Xavi scored twice. Villa, Pedro and Jeffren added goals. It was humiliation for Madrid and vindication for Barcelona. In the Champions League, Barcelona topped their group and progressed through the knockout stages systematically. They defeated Arsenal 4-3 on aggregate in the round of 16, 2-1 at Emirates, 3-1 at Camp Nou, with Messi scoring in both legs. This set up the defining period of the season. Between April 16th and May 3rd, 2011, Barcelona and Real Madrid would face each other 4 times in 18 days across 3 competitions. It was unprecedented, intense, and would produce some of the greatest football ever played, alongside some of the ugliest behaviour. The Copa del Rey final at the Mestalla in Valencia saw Mourinho's Madrid deploy a defensive game plan. The match remained goalless through 90 minutes and into extra time. But in the 103rd minute, Iniesta received the ball outside the penalty area and struck a shot that flew past Iker Casillas. Barcelona won 1-0, defeating Mourinho's defensive tactics with individual brilliance. A week later, the Champions League semi-final, first leg, took place at the Bernabeu. The match was tense and controversial. Pepe was sent off in the 61st minute for a challenge on Dani Alves. Mourinho was sent to the stands for protesting. Barcelona won 2-0, with Messi scoring both goals, a penalty in the 76th minute and a second goal in the 87th minute. Mourinho's post-match press conference became infamous. He questioned refereeing decisions repeatedly, saying, "Why? Why always me? Why do these things always happen in the same direction?" It was calculated to deflect from Madrid's defeat and create a victim narrative. The second leg at Camp Nou on May 3rd, 2011, was Barcelona at their absolute peak. Guardiola started with a 3-4-3 formation, overwhelming Madrid's midfield. Barcelona won 2-0, 4-1 aggregate, dominating with 70% possession and over 700 completed passes. Pedro scored in the 54th minute, and Messi added a second in the 87th minute after a remarkable solo run from the halfway line. Barcelona had reached the Champions League final for the 3rd time in 4 years. The Champions League final at Wembley on May 28, 2011, pitted Barcelona against Manchester United. United came with a clear plan: press high and transition quickly. For 10 minutes, it appeared viable. Then Pedro scored in the 27th minute. Wayne Rooney equalised in the 34th minute, but in the second half, Barcelona's superiority became total. Messi scored with a magnificent shot from outside the box in the 54th minute. David Villa added a third in the 69th minute. Final score, 3-1 to Barcelona. Sir Alex Ferguson, May 28, 2011, said, "Nobody's given us a hiding like that. It's a great moment for them. They deserve it because they play the right way and they enjoy their football." Barcelona had won La Liga with 96 points, the Champions League without losing a match, and beaten Real Madrid 5 times across all competitions. Messi had scored 53 goals in all competitions. The team had scored 178 goals. By every measure, they had reached the pinnacle of club football, not just successful, but dominant and beautiful in their dominance. The 2010-11 season represented Barcelona at absolute peak perfection. Section 7. El Clásico Wars, the Mourinho rivalry, brief summary. Between 2010 and 2012, the battle between Pep Guardiola and José Mourinho became one of football's most intellectually stimulating and psychologically complex rivalries. Guardiola, the idealist who believed football should be beautiful, versus Mourinho, the pragmatist who believed winning was everything. Their clash represented two fundamentally different visions of what football should be. Their connection went back to the mid-1990s, when Guardiola was Barcelona's playmaker, and Mourinho was an assistant coach under Bobby Robson at the club. There was mutual respect then, but as opposing managers, that respect was replaced by intense competition. Mourinho's arrival at Real Madrid in summer 2010 immediately changed Spanish football's dynamic. He made calculated comments about Barcelona's influence with referees, their behavior, their advantages. Each comment was designed to plant seeds of doubt and position Madrid as underdogs. Guardiola, usually measured, found himself drawn into psychological warfare he never wanted. The rivalry reached its ugliest moment on August 17, 2011, during the Spanish Super Cup's second leg at Camp Nou. Barcelona won 3-2, securing a 5-4 aggregate victory. But in the final moments, during a touchline confrontation, Mourinho poked his finger into the eye of Barcelona assistant coach Tito Vilanova. Both men received bans from the Spanish Football Federation. Mourinho for 2 matches, Vilanova for 1 match for his reaction. The Guardiola-Mourinho rivalry produced some of the greatest matches in football history, but also cynicism and behavior that sometimes embarrassed both clubs. It proved that brilliant minds could create something special through competition, but also that obsession can become toxic. Years later, both men would speak more respectfully about each other, the intensity having cooled with distance. But for those who witnessed it, the drama and quality would never be forgotten. Section 8. The 2011-2012 season. Cracks appear. Champions of Europe, for the second time in 3 years, Barcelona returned for the 2011-12 season as the undisputed best team in world football. The question that hung over Camp Nou as players reported for pre-season training was simple yet profound. What do you do after perfection? How do you motivate players who have won everything? How do you improve a system that has already reached its theoretical maximum? Guardiola approached the new season with visible weariness. In pre-season press conferences, he spoke about the difficulty of keeping players motivated after achieving so much. He warned about the mental fatigue that comes from sustained excellence. For the first time, there were hints that Guardiola himself might be approaching exhaustion from the relentless pressure of maintaining impossibly high standards. The squad that assembled for pre-season was largely unchanged. Guardiola had made 2 significant additions. Cesc Fabregas returned from Arsenal for approximately €29 million plus variables, and Alexis Sanchez arrived from Udinese for about €26 million plus add-ons. Both were excellent players, but integrating them into Barcelona's precise system would prove challenging. Otherwise, Guardiola trusted the players who had delivered consistent success. The season began ominously with the Spanish Super Cup against Real Madrid. The first leg at the Bernabeu on August 14th finished 2-2. The second leg at Camp Nou on August 17th, 2011, descended into chaos. Barcelona won 3-2, securing a 5-4 aggregate victory, but the match was overshadowed by a violent incident. In the final moments, during a touchline confrontation, José Mourinho deliberately poked his finger into the eye of Barcelona assistant coach Tito Vilanova. The Spanish Football Federation subsequently banned Mourinho for 2 matches and Vilanova for 1 match. It was shocking and symptomatic of how toxic the rivalry had become. In La Liga, Barcelona began with their typical dominance. They won their opening 5 matches, scoring 21 goals and conceding just 5. The system still functioned effectively. Results still accumulated. By November, they sat atop La Liga, but closer observers noted subtle signs of decline. The pressing wasn't quite as intense as previous seasons. Movement off the ball was sometimes predictable. Opponents who sat deep and defended compactly were causing more problems than before. The reality was that teams across Europe had spent 3 years studying Barcelona, analyzing their patterns and developing countermeasures. The false 9 system that had been revolutionary in 2008 to 2009 was now understood. Teams knew that keeping their defensive line deep and not following Messi when he dropped into midfield could limit Barcelona's penetration. By remaining compact and disciplined, forcing Barcelona to play in front of them rather than through them, chances could be limited. It wasn't foolproof. Barcelona was still too good, but it made matches more competitive. Squad additions created complications. Cesc Fabregas had returned to Barcelona as a prodigal son, but integrating him proved difficult. He wanted to play in Xavi's position, but didn't have Xavi's exact skill set. Alexis Sanchez was an excellent player, but struggled initially with Barcelona's requirement for precise, selfless team play. These weren't disasters, but they were disruptions to the harmony that had defined previous seasons. In December, Barcelona travelled to Japan for the FIFA Club World Cup. They won convincingly, defeating Santos 4-0 in the final on December 18th, with Messi scoring twice and providing 2 assists. It was Barcelona's 14th trophy in 4 years under Guardiola, an extraordinary collection. But the trip required long-distance travel and games that disrupted the rhythm of the domestic season, adding to the accumulated fatigue. The winter period brought unexpected struggles. On January 8, 2012, Barcelona lost 1-0 to Getafe, exposing their occasional inability to break down ultra-defensive blocks. On January 25th, they lost 3-1 to Real Madrid at the Bernabeu, showing that Mourinho's team had closed the gap significantly. Barcelona was still top of the table and remained favourites to win the league, but the margin of superiority had narrowed considerably. Real Madrid sensed opportunity. The deeper problem was predictability. Barcelona's approach had become so refined, so perfected, that it was also somewhat predictable. They would dominate possession, probe patiently, wait for the perfect moment to strike. But against teams willing to defend for 90 minutes, that perfect moment sometimes never materialized. Statistical analysis showed the issue clearly. Barcelona's shot conversion rate had declined from previous seasons. They were creating fewer clear-cut chances, despite maintaining similar possession numbers. The Champions League knockout stages began with Bayer Leverkusen. Barcelona won 7-1 on aggregate, 3-1 away, 1-1 at home, 4-0 at home. It looked like a return to form, a reminder of Barcelona's devastating potential. Messi scored 5 goals across the 2 legs, but Leverkusen had also created chances, exposing defensive vulnerabilities that a better team might exploit. The quarter-final draw brought AC Milan. For the first leg at the San Siro on March 28, 2012, Milan implemented an aggressive pressing system, closing down Barcelona's defenders before they could play out from the back. It was risky but effective in disrupting Barcelona's rhythm. The match finished 0-0. Milan had created better chances and could have won. Barcelona had failed to score an away goal, meaning Milan would travel to Camp Nou, needing only a score draw to advance. The second leg at Camp Nou on April 3, 2012, tested Barcelona's character. Milan came with the same aggressive approach, refusing to be intimidated. Barcelona struggled initially to find their rhythm. Then, in the 11th minute, Messi was brought down in the penalty area. He converted the penalty to give Barcelona the lead, but Milan refused to fold. In the 32nd minute, Antonio Nocerino equalized with a well-taken finish. Suddenly, the tie was level on aggregate with Milan holding the away goal advantage. Barcelona needed to score again. Just before half-time, Messi earned another penalty after being fouled by Alessandro Nesta. He converted again, restoring Barcelona's lead at 2-1 on the night, 2-1 on aggregate. The second half saw Barcelona finally assert their superiority. In the 53rd minute, Iniesta finished beautifully to make it 3-1, effectively ending Milan's hopes. Barcelona controlled the remainder, advancing to the semi-finals with a 3-1 aggregate victory. They had won, but the performance revealed vulnerabilities. Milan had created genuine problems and scored at Camp Nou, something few teams managed. The semi-final draw brought Chelsea, now managed by Roberto Di Matteo, after Andre Villas-Boas was dismissed in March. Chelsea were in transition, but they had defensive organisation and experience. More importantly, they had a game plan specifically designed to frustrate Barcelona. The first leg at Stamford Bridge on April 18th finished 1-0 to Chelsea. Didier Drogba scored in stoppage time of the first half. Chelsea defended with extraordinary discipline, sitting deep and compact, conceding possession willingly. Barcelona had 79.1% possession and 24 shot attempts, but only 6 on target. Chelsea's goalkeeper Petr Cech made several crucial saves. Barcelona left London trailing 1-0, needing to overturn the deficit at Camp Nou. The second leg at Camp Nou on April 24th would become one of the most dramatic matches in Champions League history. Barcelona started urgently, needing a goal. In the 35th minute, Sergio Busquets scored to level the tie on aggregate. In the 37th minute, Chelsea captain John Terry was sent off for kneeing Alexis Sanchez in the back while off the ball. 2 minutes later, Iniesta scored to put Barcelona 2-0 up on the night, 2-1 on aggregate. But in first-half stoppage time, Ramirez scored a remarkable chipped goal on the counter-attack for Chelsea, making it 2-1 on the night, 2-2 on aggregate. Now, Chelsea held the away goal advantage despite being down to 10 men. Early in the second half, Didier Drogba conceded a penalty. Messi stepped up, but uncharacteristically struck the crossbar. The ball bounced away. In stoppage time, Fernando Torres scored for Chelsea on another counter-attack, making it 2-2 on the night. Chelsea won 3-2 on aggregate, despite playing most of the match with 10 men, and despite Barcelona having 82.5% possession. The European dream was over. After the Chelsea elimination, Barcelona's season unravelled. In La Liga, Real Madrid had been relentless, winning match after match. The title race went down to the final weeks. Madrid won their final 7 league matches, scoring 30 goals in the process. Barcelona, still reeling from the Chelsea defeat and lacking their usual conviction, couldn't match that intensity. On May 2nd, 2012, Real Madrid defeated Athletic Bilbao 3-0 to secure the La Liga title with 100 points, a record. Barcelona finished second with 91 points, a total that would win the league in most seasons. The body language of Barcelona's players in those final weeks told the story. The automatic movements that had made them seem telepathic had fractured slightly. They were still excellent, 91 points proved that, but they were no longer exceptional. The mental and physical fatigue that Guardiola had worried about had manifested. 4 years of playing at maximum intensity had extracted their toll. The statistics illustrated the decline. Barcelona's goals per game had dropped from 3.04 in 2010 to 2.74 in 2011, 2011 to 12. Statistical analysis of their pressing intensity showed a decrease of approximately 15% compared to previous seasons. Their pass completion rate remained high at 88%, but the percentage of forward passes had declined, suggesting more sideways circulation without penetration. Messi's goal tally actually increased to 73 in all competitions, meaning he was carrying more of the burden individually. And then there was Guardiola himself. Images from throughout the season showed his physical transformation, weight loss, a haggard appearance, visible stress. Coaching Barcelona at the level he demanded had consumed him. The preparation, the obsession over details, the psychological burden of managing enormous egos while maintaining team harmony, all of it had taken a severe personal toll. On April 27, 2012, Guardiola appeared before journalists at a hastily arranged press conference. The rumors had been circulating. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of an enormously difficult decision. "I'm leaving," he said. "I need to rest, to recharge. This decision is not easy, but it's necessary." He would later explain in documented interviews that after 4 years, the desire had gone, facing the same players, the same opponents, the same pressures. The announcement sent shockwaves through football. Barcelona's season concluded with the Copa del Rey final against Athletic Bilbao on May 25, 2012. Barcelona won 3-0 with goals from Pedro, Messi and Piqué. It was Guardiola's 14th and final trophy with Barcelona. 5 days later, on May 30, 2012, Barcelona announced that Tito Vilanova would succeed Guardiola as head coach. The 2011-12 season had revealed fundamental truths about Barcelona's model. First, that sustained excellence at the very highest level is nearly impossible in modern football. The physical demands, mental pressure, and tactical adaptations of opponents eventually level the playing field. Second, that even the best system has vulnerabilities that sufficiently motivated and well-organized opponents can exploit. Third, that great teams are often undone not by opponents but by their own success, complacency, fatigue, and the loss of hunger that follows complete achievement. Barcelona's era of absolute dominance was ending. The rise had been extraordinary. The decline, when it came, was inevitable and deeply human. Section 9. The supporting cast and system players. Every great team in football history is defined by its stars, but championships are built on depth. Guardiola's Barcelona was blessed with some of the greatest players ever in Messi, Xavi, and Iniesta. But they were also supported by an exceptional cast who understood their roles perfectly and executed them with professionalism that elevated the collective. Carles Puyol Saforcada epitomized everything Barcelona valued, even though his style seemed almost contrary to their elegant philosophy. Born in Catalonia in 1978, Puyol had come through La Masia and made his debut in 1999. By the time Guardiola arrived in 2008, Puyol was the team captain. Where Barcelona was about technical finesse, Puyol was about warrior spirit and leadership through example. Puyol was not the most technically gifted player in Barcelona's squad. His passing was functional rather than spectacular. But what he provided was irreplaceable: leadership, courage, and an absolute refusal to accept defeat. In crucial matches, when Barcelona needed someone to make a decisive tackle, to win an important header, to inspire through sheer will, Puyol delivered. He made 593 official appearances for Barcelona, winning 21 major trophies during his career. Puyol also had a knack for scoring crucial goals despite not being an offensive threat. His header against Germany in the 2010 World Cup semi-final sent Spain to the final. His goal against Real Madrid in the 2009 Champions League semi-final at the Bernabeu provided a crucial advantage. These weren't moments of technical brilliance. They were moments of being in the right place and wanting it more intensely than anyone else. Sergio Busquets. Burgos was Barcelona's shield, the player who protected the defense and enabled the attack through positional perfection and technical security. Born in 1988, Busquets was promoted to the first team by Guardiola in 2008, despite having played just one season with Barcelona B. The decision would prove inspired. Busquets operated as the pivot, the single defensive midfielder, a position of immense responsibility and technical demand. Busquets' signature quality was his ability to escape pressure situations that seemed impossible. Through body positioning, quick feet, and exceptional peripheral vision, he would evade challenges with minimal movement. Vicente del Bosque, Spain's national team coach, captured his importance perfectly. You watch the game, you don't see Busquets. You watch Busquets, you see the whole game. Gerard Piqué Bernabeu provided the perfect complement to Puyol at centre-back. Born in Barcelona in 1987, Piqué had left La Masia as a teenager to join Manchester United, where he won the Champions League in 2008 before returning to Barcelona that same summer. At 6 feet 4 inches, Piqué had physical presence to dominate aerially, but he also possessed the technical ability to play out from the back with confidence, starting attacks with precise passes from defence. In Guardiola's system, centre-backs weren't just defenders. They were the first attackers, responsible for initiating build-up play and playing accurate passes under pressure. Piqué excelled at this, his height giving him excellent vision over the midfield. He formed an excellent partnership with Puyol, the cerebral ball player complementing the instinctive warrior. He would make over 600 appearances for Barcelona, winning more than 30 major trophies. Dani Alves da Silva was perhaps the most attacking fullback in world football during this period. The Brazilian joined Barcelona from Sevilla for approximately €32 million in 2008. The same summer, Guardiola arrived. Guardiola's tactics required fullbacks who could operate almost as wingers, providing width while nominal wingers drifted inside. Alves was perfect for this role, technically excellent, physically tireless, and offensively creative. Alves would make countless overlapping runs every match, bombing forward to receive passes and deliver crosses. His energy seemed inexhaustible. Statistical records show Alves provided over 100 assists during Guardiola's 4 years, an extraordinary number for a defender. He became Barcelona's most creative player after the front three and Xavi. He would win 23 trophies with Barcelona before leaving in 2016. Pedro Eliezer Rodriguez Ledesma represented the ultimate system player. Born in Tenerife in 1987, Pedro came through La Masia and was promoted to the first team by Guardiola in 2008. Pedro's greatest quality was his movement. He understood Barcelona's system perfectly and made runs that created space for others. When Messi dropped deep as a false nine, Pedro would make diagonal runs in behind, attacking the space Messi had vacated. Pedro scored 99 goals in 321 appearances under Guardiola, impressive numbers for a player who was nominally a winger but often operated as a second striker. But goals were only part of his contribution. His defensive work rate was exceptional. He would press opponents relentlessly, track back to help defense, and never stop running. This allowed Barcelona to maintain their high pressing system even when attacking players were involved. In 2009, he became the only Spanish player to score in 6 different official competitions in the same season. Beyond the regular starters, Barcelona had depth that made them nearly impossible to beat, even when key players were injured or rested. Victor Valdés in goal made over 500 appearances for Barcelona, winning 21 major trophies. Eric Abidal provided defensive solidity and versatility at left-back or centre-back, courageously returning to play after liver surgery in 2011. Seydou Keita contributed energy and physicality in midfield. David Villa, who arrived in 2010 from Valencia for €40 million, provided crucial goals and intelligent movement. What made Barcelona's supporting cast exceptional was that most came through La Masia. They had been educated in Barcelona's philosophy from childhood, understood the system instinctively, and shared the club's values. This created a homogeneity of approach that made the team greater than the sum of its parts. Everyone knew their role, accepted it, and performed it with professionalism and commitment. The Academy's influence on this era cannot be overstated, providing not just technical skills, but a way of thinking about football. The supporting cast of Guardiola's Barcelona deserves recognition for the team's success. In an era where individual stars often dominate narratives, these players demonstrated that collective excellence requires selflessness, tactical discipline, and absolute commitment to team principles. They were world-class players, content to be role players, stars willing to shine in service of a greater constellation. Without Puyol's leadership, Busquets' positioning, Piqué's composure, Alves' creativity, and Pedro's movement, Barcelona's system would have been impossible to implement. The stars received the glory, but the supporting cast provided the foundation. Section 10. The Decline and Guardiola's Exit, April 27th, 2012. Pep Guardiola appeared before journalists at a press conference that had been hastily arranged. The previous hours had been filled with speculation. As he took his seat, the tension was palpable. Guardiola looked exhausted, emotional, drained. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of a decision that had clearly taken enormous toll to reach. He announced he would leave Barcelona at the end of the season. Guardiola explained his decision with characteristic honesty. He spoke of needing rest, of being drained after 4 years of intense pressure. He later told reporters that after 4 years, the desire was gone in Barcelona. The same players, the same opponents, the same journalists, the same games. It was the hardest decision of his life, he said, but it was necessary. At just 41 years old, he was walking away from the greatest team he had created. Images of Guardiola from his 4 years at Barcelona tell a story of transformation. In 2008, he appeared youthful and energetic. By 2012, he looked aged beyond his years, worn down. The weight loss was visible. The stress lines on his face were pronounced. Those who worked with him described a man consumed by football, unable to disconnect, sleeping poorly, obsessing over every detail. The signs had been accumulating throughout the 2011-12 season. Guardiola's press conferences became increasingly tense, his responses shorter. The joy that had been evident in early years was replaced by grim determination. The rivalry with Mourinho had become personal and draining. The pressure to maintain impossible standards while opponents grew stronger had become overwhelming. There were also tactical considerations. Guardiola had taken Barcelona's system as far as it could go. The possession-based, pressing-heavy approach he had perfected was now understood by every team in world football. Opponents had developed countermeasures. While Barcelona could still evolve within their philosophical framework, the revolutionary impact had diminished. The element of surprise was gone. Barcelona's players were visibly affected by the announcement. Many had played their entire careers under Guardiola, knowing only his methods and philosophy. Xavi, Iniesta, and Puyol had achieved everything under his guidance. Younger players like Busquets and Pedro had been molded entirely by his coaching. The question everyone asked was whether Barcelona could maintain their level without the man who had created their success. The final weeks of the 2011-12 season became an extended farewell. Barcelona had already lost La Liga to Real Madrid and been eliminated from the Champions League. The remaining matches took on emotional significance. Every home match became an opportunity for fans to thank Guardiola. Camp Nou displayed banners thanking him. Fans chanted his name. It was a celebration tinged with sadness. Guardiola's final home match came on May 5th, 2012 against Espanyol. Barcelona won 4-0, a performance that reminded everyone of their quality. After the final whistle, Guardiola walked around the pitch, applauding the fans who had supported him through 4 extraordinary years. The ovation lasted minutes, Camp Nou united in gratitude. The final accounting of Guardiola's Barcelona tenure was staggering. 14 trophies in 4 years, 3 La Liga titles, 2 Copa del Rey, 3 Spanish Super Cups, 2 Champions League titles, 2 UEFA Super Cups, and 2 FIFA Club World Cups. They had won everything that could be won, often multiple times. Beyond trophies, the style of play, the tactical innovations, and the sheer dominance had set new standards for excellence. The statistics were equally remarkable. Barcelona averaged 2.8 goals per game across all competitions during Guardiola's tenure. They completed over 88% of their passes. They won 72% of all matches played, 247 victories, 60 draws, and only 35 defeats across 342 matches. In La Liga, they accumulated 355 points from 152 matches, an average of 2.34 points per game sustained over 4 seasons. Barcelona moved quickly to announce Guardiola's successor, Tito Vilanova, his assistant coach throughout the 4-year reign. It was a logical choice, ensuring continuity in tactics and philosophy. Vilanova knew the players intimately and understood the system perfectly, but everyone understood the challenge he faced. Following Guardiola was following perfection, an impossible standard to match. The image of Guardiola driving away from Barcelona's training facility became symbolic. He had given Barcelona everything, and they had given him immortality. But immortality came at a price. His health, his peace of mind, and 4 years of his life consumed entirely by football. Looking back, the decline that became apparent in 2011-12 had multiple causes. Physical fatigue. Players who had competed at maximum intensity for 4 years simply couldn't maintain that level indefinitely. Mental exhaustion. The pressure of sustaining excellence had become crushing. Tactical adaptation. Opponents had learned to neutralize Barcelona's strengths. Complacency. Inevitable when players have won everything. And Guardiola's own burnout, which affected the entire organization. After leaving Barcelona, Guardiola took a sabbatical year, moving to New York to rest and recharge. Those who saw him during this period described a man recovering from intense stress. The weight he had lost returned. The stress lines on his face softened. He began enjoying football again as a spectator, rather than feeling consumed by it as a coach. The sabbatical proved necessary. His decision to leave Barcelona, however painful, had been correct. Barcelona under Tito Vilanova would win La Liga in 2012-13 with 100 points, proving that Guardiola's system could succeed without its creator. But tragically, Vilanova would be forced to step down during his second season due to illness, eventually passing away from cancer in April 2014 at age 45. The continuity Barcelona had hoped for would prove impossible. The 2011-12 season and Guardiola's departure marked the end of Barcelona's greatest era. The rise had been meteoric, the peak had been sublime, and the decline, when it came, was both inevitable and human, proof that perfection cannot be sustained indefinitely. Camp Nou would host many more great nights, but the magic of those 4 years under Guardiola would never be replicated. Section 11. Legacy and global impact. The true measure of greatness isn't just trophies won or records broken, it's lasting impact on the sport itself. By this measure, Guardiola's Barcelona stands among the most influential teams in history. Their success didn't just inspire imitation, it fundamentally changed how football was conceived, coached, and played at every level. The most immediate impact was tactical. Possession-based football, which had been one approach among many, became the dominant paradigm across Europe. Clubs began implementing Barcelona-style systems: short passing, high pressing, positional play. Youth academies restructured programs to emphasize ball retention and decision-making. The entire football ecosystem reoriented itself toward Barcelona's model. The most visible vindication of Barcelona's approach came through Spain's national team. Between 2008 and 2012, Spain won Euro 2008, the 2010 World Cup, and Euro 2012, an unprecedented run built on Barcelona's principles. The core of that Spanish team, Xavi, Iniesta, Busquets, Piqué, Puyol, Pedro, came from Barcelona. They brought Guardiola's methods to the international stage and proved they could work anywhere. Spain's 2010 World Cup victory was particularly significant. They played with a 4-6-0 formation in the knockout stages. No traditional striker, just midfielders and technical players. It was the false nine concept taken to its extreme, and it worked. The World Cup, football's most conservative tournament, had been won by a team playing pure Barcelona football. Statistical evidence of Barcelona's influence is clear. In the 2007 to 2008 season, before Guardiola's arrival, the average possession for winning teams in Europe's top 5 leagues was approximately 52 to 53%. By 2011 to 12, it had risen to 57 to 58%. Teams had learned that controlling the ball correlated with winning. Passing accuracy across elite leagues increased by approximately 4 to 5 percentage points during this period. Guardiola's own career after Barcelona further spread his influence. At Bayern Munich, from 2013 to 2016, he won 3 consecutive Bundesliga titles. At Manchester City, from 2016 onward, he won multiple Premier League titles, including 4 consecutive championships from 2021 to 2024. Each stop demonstrated that his methods weren't dependent on Barcelona's specific culture. They were universally applicable principles that could be adapted to different contexts. Perhaps the most lasting legacy is in youth development. Barcelona's La Masia Academy became the gold standard, studied and imitated by clubs worldwide. The emphasis on technical development, tactical intelligence, and playing with the ball from young ages spread globally. Clubs invested billions in academy infrastructure, hoping to replicate La Masia's success. But football never stands still. Barcelona's dominance inevitably provoked tactical evolution as coaches sought counters to their approach. Ultra-defensive setups became more sophisticated. Gegenpressing, high-intensity pressing to win the ball back immediately, emerged as a counter to possession systems. Teams learned to transition faster and attack with more directness. On a deeper level, Barcelona reignited football's fundamental philosophical debate. Should the sport prioritize beauty or effectiveness? Guardiola argued that winning was insufficient, that how you won mattered. His Barcelona demonstrated that art and success weren't mutually exclusive. This inspired countless coaches and fans to reject purely pragmatic football and demand more from their teams. The commercial impact was profound. Barcelona's success transformed the club into a global brand. Revenue increased by over 50% during Guardiola's tenure. More broadly, Barcelona proved that attractive football was commercially viable. Fans worldwide wanted to watch Barcelona, and television audiences grew substantially. This demonstrated to clubs that investing in attractive football was sound business strategy. Culturally, Guardiola's Barcelona elevated football's status. Writers and intellectuals who had previously dismissed football began analyzing Barcelona with seriousness, usually reserved for arts. Philosophers examined their collective decision-making. The team had become football's reference point, the standard against which all other great teams are measured. The continued fascination with Guardiola's Barcelona, more than a decade after their peak, demonstrates their lasting cultural impact. Books continue analyzing their tactics. Documentaries explore their methods. They have become football's ideal form, the platonic perfect team that existed briefly in reality. Guardiola's coaching tree also spread his influence. Tito Villanova maintained Barcelona's style before his tragic illness. Mikel Arteta, who worked under Guardiola at Manchester City, became Arsenal's manager, implementing similar principles. Domènec Torrent coached across multiple continents, spreading possession football. The ideas Guardiola developed at Barcelona now circle the globe through his former colleagues. Yet limitations must be acknowledged. Some argued Barcelona's success owed more to exceptional players than coaching, that Messi, Xavi, and Iniesta would have succeeded under any competent manager. Others noted that Barcelona's approach required specific conditions: technically superior players, patient supporters, institutional commitment that most clubs couldn't replicate. Walking through football today, Barcelona's influence is everywhere. Teams build from the back because Barcelona showed it was possible. Goalkeepers are judged on distribution because Barcelona proved keepers could be playmakers. False nines are commonplace because Barcelona demonstrated their effectiveness. High pressing is standard because Barcelona used it to dominate. The entire sport reorganized itself around principles Barcelona exemplified. That is legacy, not just what you accomplish, but how you inspire others to accomplish more than they thought possible. Section 12. Conclusion. The end of an era. 4 years, 14 trophies, 342 matches, 596 goals. Numbers that capture facts, but miss essence. Between summer 2008 and spring 2012, FC Barcelona achieved what may never be replicated. They built the perfect football team. And then, inevitably, that perfection faded. The rise and fall of Guardiola's Barcelona is a story about human achievement at its peak and human limitation at its most fundamental. The contrast between beginning and end tells its own story. In 2008, Barcelona were talented but underachieving. Guardiola arrived as an unproven coach with radical ideas. By 2009, they were treble winners. By 2011, they had reached a summit of excellence that seemed supernatural. And by 2012, they were declining. Still very good, but no longer great. The arc was complete, the cycle inevitable. Tactically, Barcelona redefined modern football's possibilities. They proved possession could be a weapon. They demonstrated that pressing could be systematic. They showed that technical quality could overcome physical superiority. The false nine, the inverted fullbacks, the pivot, the constant positional rotations, these innovations became standard practice. Barcelona didn't just win, they changed how winning was conceived. The moments remain unforgettable. The 6-2 at the Bernabeu in May 2009, the treble triumph in Guardiola's first season, the Wembley final in 2011, producing perhaps the greatest Champions League final performance ever. Messi's solo runs, Xavi's perfect passes, Iniesta's crucial goals. These moments transcend sport to become cultural touchstones, referenced by millions who witnessed them. For those directly involved, the experience was transformative. Guardiola gave everything to Barcelona and was drained when he departed. The players achieved immortality, but at the cost of years spent in constant pressure. Supporters experienced joy bordering on ecstasy, but now live knowing they'll probably never see its equal. Everyone involved was changed by participation in something extraordinary. The decline of great teams follows predictable patterns. Complacency arrives as success breeds satisfaction. Tactical adaptation follows as opponents study and learn. Physical decline occurs as players age and accumulate wear. Mental fatigue manifests as sustained excellence becomes crushing. Finally, key figures depart, taking knowledge and leadership with them. Barcelona experienced all of these in sequence. How does Guardiola's Barcelona compare to history's legendary teams? Real Madrid's 1950s team dominated, but in a less competitive environment. Brazil's 1970 World Cup team was brilliant, but existed for one tournament. On balance, Barcelona's combination of sustained dominance, tactical innovation, and aesthetic beauty places them among the very greatest, arguably the greatest of the modern era. Final accounting: 247 wins, 60 draws, 35 defeats across 342 matches, a 72% win rate sustained over 4 seasons, 596 goals scored, 14 major trophies. Barcelona won more than 7 of every 10 matches, scored nearly 3 goals every 2 matches, and collected trophies at unprecedented rates. These numbers capture dominance, but not beauty. What lessons does Barcelona's rise and fall teach us? That excellence is temporary, that perfection is unsustainable, that every peak eventually gives way to valley, but also that pursuing perfection matters even when you can't maintain it forever, that attempting to reach the summit justifies itself regardless of how long you stay there, that creating something beautiful, even if fleeting, adds value to the world. Messi, Xavi, and Iniesta would eventually separate. Xavi departed for Qatar in 2015. Iniesta left for Japan in 2018. Messi remained until 2021, breaking every record but never again being part of something as perfect as Guardiola's Barcelona. Their paths diverged, but they remained connected by what they achieved together. They had been part of football's greatest team. Guardiola himself would achieve further success. 3 Bundesliga titles at Bayern Munich, multiple Premier League titles at Manchester City, including a historic 4 consecutive championships. He proved his methods could succeed anywhere. But even his later achievements exist in Barcelona's shadow. When people discuss Guardiola's legacy, they start with Barcelona. It was his masterpiece. Watch football today, and Barcelona's influence remains visible. Teams build from the back because Barcelona showed it worked. Pressing systems exist because Barcelona demonstrated their effectiveness. Youth academies emphasize technique because Barcelona's academy graduates conquered the world. The sport reorganized itself around principles Barcelona exemplified. Their dominance lasted 4 years. Their impact will last indefinitely. In the end, what made Guardiola's Barcelona special wasn't just that they won. It was the completeness of their achievement, the totality of their dominance, and the perfection of their execution. For 4 years, they represented football at its theoretical maximum. They showed us what football looks like when played perfectly, and then they showed us that perfection cannot last. The rise was meteoric, the peak was sublime, the decline was inevitable, and the entire journey was unforgettable. Camp Nou sits in evening light, magnificent and silent. The stadium has witnessed countless matches since Guardiola's departure, and will witness countless more. But those who were there between 2008 and 2012 know they saw something special. Football's theoretical maximum realized in practice. Art disguised as sport. Perfection that was both more and less than human, more in its achievement, less in its inability to last. The rise and fall of Guardiola's Barcelona teaches us that greatness is possible, but temporary, that perfection can be achieved, but not sustained, that the pursuit of excellence justifies itself regardless of duration, that human beings can accomplish extraordinary things when talent, preparation, and timing align, and that sometimes the most beautiful things in life are beautiful precisely because they cannot last forever. This was the story of a coach who demanded perfection, players who delivered it, and a team that briefly reached football's summit before gravity reasserted itself. It was 4 years that changed football forever. It was the rise and fall of the greatest team the modern era has seen. It was Guardiola's Barcelona, imperfect in its perfection, eternal in its temporality, and unforgettable in every way that matters. The end